It started over over a toll violation. You know, those little annoying infractions we all sort of dread.
Yeah.
Maybe $1.50, maybe $5. Usually just a routine administrative headache.
Right, yeah. The kind of thing that ends with a piece of paper and a ruined afternoon.
Exactly. But on a highway outside Houston, this wasn't just a ticket. In less than 2 minutes, a man was dead. A police officer was literally clinging to the side of a moving car, and the American legal system was left holding a stopwatch,
The literal stopwatch.
trying to
Why?
figure out, if it was a lawful act of self-defense or a clear violation of the Constitution.
It sounds like a movie, but that stopwatch is exactly what the Supreme Court just ruled on. We're talking about the case of Barnes v. Felix, which was decided on May 15th, 2025.
And today, we're doing a deep dive into this case because it fundamentally changes the rules of engagement for police officers. It pits two massive legal theories against each other. It's almost like a battle of camera angles.
Oh, that's a really great way to put it. On one side, you've got the moment of threat rule, so that's your tight zoom on the final split second.
Right, the close-up.
And on the other, you have the totality of the circumstances, which is the wide-angle shot, the whole movie.
And a court has finally picked a winner. So what's our mission here? We aren't just going to sit here and read a court syllabus to you. We need to figure out what this actually means for the cop on the street and the driver in the seat.
Because it's life or death out there.
Exactly. We've got the unanimous opinion from Justice Kagan, and we have a concurrence from Justice Kavanaugh that is honestly pretty terrifying when you read about the sheer dangers of traffic stops.
It really is a heavy one. We are looking at how a timeline, literally the seconds ticking by, dictates whether a police shooting is justified.
So walk me through this. Let's get out of the courtroom, get onto the pavement. What actually happened that day?
Okay, let's set the scene. It's April 28, 2016. Officer Roberto Felix Jr. is on patrol near Houston. He's doing what traffic cops do, just scanning plates. He gets a hit on a Toyota Corolla.
And like we said, this wasn't a hit for an armed robbery or anything.
No, not at all. It was for outstanding toll violations. So, Felix lights him up. The driver is Ashton Barnes. He pulls the Corolla over to the shoulder. Felix parks right behind him.
Totally standard procedure so far.
Standard, sure, but any cop will tell you traffic stops are never truly routine. Felix walks up to the window, asks for license and insurance. Barnes doesn't have them. He tells the officer the car is a rental in his girlfriend's name.
Okay, so no ID, not great, but obviously not a capital crime.
Right. But then the behavior shifts. Barnes starts rummaging. He's digging around in the center console, reaching down under the seats.
Looking for paperwork.
Supposedly, yes. But to an officer, digging is a massive red flag. Felix tells him to stop multiple times. And on top of that, Felix notes the smell of marijuana coming from the cabin.
Okay, so the officer is standing there thinking, no ID, digging around for who knows what, and drugs. You can feel the tension ratcheting up.
It really is. Felix orders Barnes to open the trunk, presumably to see if the ID is tossed back there, or maybe to check for whatever else might be in the car. Barnes complies, he pops the trunk, but, and this is a crucial detail, he turns off the ignition.
So the car is off. The threat of him just driving away seems pretty low right there. How long has this whole interaction been going on?
That's the crazy part. We're talking less than 2 minutes from the moment Felix walked up to the window. It is happening incredibly fast.
Man. So where does it go wrong?
The climax happens in a heartbeat. Felix rests his hand on his holster. He's clearly on high alert now. He orders Barnes to get out of the car. Barnes opens the door.
Okay.
But he doesn't step out. Instead, he reaches right back over and turns the ignition back on.
Oh boy, he's making a run for it.
The engine starts. The car lurches forward. Officer Felix makes a split-second decision. He doesn't jump back away from the vehicle. He jumps onto the doorsill of the moving car.
Wait, he jumps on the car, like hangs onto the frame while it's actually moving.
Yes. He frames himself in the open door, feet on the sill, while the Corolla is accelerating. He shouts, "Don't fing move!" And then he fires 2 shots into the car.
Could he even see who he was shooting at from that angle?
No. His head was above the roofline. He essentially fired blandly down into the cabin. The car stops. Barnes has been hit, and tragically, he dies from his injuries.
That is horrific. And just to be completely clear on the timing here, how long was he actually hanging on the car?
The total time from the car starting to move to the car stopping was 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
5 seconds. And the time Felix was standing on the doorsill before he pulled the trigger? 2 seconds.
2 seconds. That's the window we're looking at.
That is the window. Barnes's mother sued, claiming excessive force under the Fourth Amendment. She argued that shooting a man who's fleeing a toll violation is entirely unreasonable.
And so this goes to court. Now, I assume the lower courts look at this and said, well, the officer jumped on the car. He kind of created the danger himself, so he's liable.
Actually, no. The District Court and the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals both ruled in favor of the officer. They said the shooting was lawful.
Really? How do they justify that?
They used a very specific legal standard called the moment of threat rule. This is where your zoom lens analogy comes in. The Fifth Circuit essentially said, we don't care about the toll violation.
Right.
We don't care about the rummaging. We don't even care that the officer made the very risky choice to jump onto a moving car.
They just ignored all of that context.
They explicitly said it was irrelevant. The only question allowed under their rule was this: was Officer Felix in danger at the precise moment he fired the gun?
Well, yeah, I mean, if I'm hanging off the side of a moving car, yeah, I'm in mortal danger.
Exactly. And that is why they ruled for him. They said, look at those final 2 seconds. He is clinging to a speeding vehicle. If he falls, he gets run over and killed. He reasonably feared for his life in that exact second. Therefore, the shooting is justified.
That just feels, I don't know, it feels unfinished. It feels like watching a movie, skipping right to the final explosion and saying, wow, the hero really had to blow that building up.
Without asking who lit the fuse.
Exactly. Without asking if he started the fire in the first place.
It definitely feels that way to a layperson. But let's play devil's advocate for a minute. Why would a court use a rule like that? They aren't trying to be obtuse.
I guess to protect the officer.
Right. It's about avoiding hindsight bias. You and I can sit here in a studio, calmly sipping water, and say, oh, he definitely shouldn't have jumped on that car.
Sure.
But in the heat of the moment, people make split-second choices. The courts have historically been very, very afraid of Monday morning quarterbacking police work. They worry that if you nitpick every single footstep leading up to a shooting, you'll paralyze officers.
They just won't act.
Exactly. They won't act because they're afraid a judge 10 years later is going to analyze their exact foot placement.
So the moment of threat rule is basically saying, we can't judge the past, we can only judge the crisis right now.
Precisely. It puts chronological blinders on the court. It completely, hermetically seals that final moment from everything else that happened.
But the Supreme Court took a look at this and said, not so fast.
They did. Justice Kagan delivered the opinion, and it was completely unanimous. They vacated the Fifth Circuit's ruling, basically threw it in the trash and said, you used the wrong measuring stick. Try again.
So the moment of threat rule is just dead.
Effectively, yes. Justice Kagan wrote that the Fourth Amendment inquiry into reasonableness has, quote, no time limit. She reaffirmed that courts must look at the totality of the circumstances.
Totality of the circumstances, which sounds like a lawyer's way of saying context matters.
It is context,
Yeah.
but it goes a lot deeper. This relies on a foundational case called Graham v. Connor from way back in 1989. That case established the objective reasonableness standard.
Which means what, exactly?
It asks, would a reasonable officer on the scene have done the same thing? And what the court is saying now is a reasonable officer doesn't suffer from sudden amnesia.
Meaning, the officer remembers why he stopped the car in the first place.
He remembers everything. The court used a really powerful analogy from another case called Plumhoff v. Rickard to explain this.
Oh, I read about that in the prep notes, the car case. But I didn't quite get the connection. How does a massive car chase relate to a simple toll stop?
Okay, so imagine this. You have a high-speed chase. Speeds over 100 miles per hour, zigzagging wildly through traffic, putting everyone on the road in extreme danger. It lasts for 5 full minutes. Eventually, the suspect's car crashes and comes to a near standstill.
Okay, so the car is stopped. The chase is over.
Is it? At that exact moment, the standstill, the car isn't actually moving. If you use the moment of threat rule, you might look at that one frame and say, hey, the car is stopped, the threat is completely gone, you can't shoot.
Because in that specific split second, nobody is actively in danger.
Right. But the Supreme Court said in Plumhoff, you have to look at the previous 5 minutes. The driver had just shown a reckless disregard for human life. He was still actively trying to maneuver the stuck car. The context of that chase meant that even at a standstill, he was still a deadly threat because of what he had just proven he was willing to do.
I see. So the history of the interaction defines the reality of the present moment.
Exactly. You literally cannot understand the final second unless you understand the minutes that preceded it. Applying that back to Barnes, the court says you must look at the interactions regarding the license, the digging around, the behavior before the car started moving.
Okay, so totality is the new law of the land. But if I'm a police officer listening to this right now, I'm probably sweating a little bit. I'm thinking, great, now I'm going to be analyzed for every twitch I made 10 minutes before I had to make a life or death decision.
And that is a very real, valid fear. It's exactly why Justice Kavanaugh wrote a separate concurring opinion, which was joined by Justices Thomas, Alito, and Barrett. They fully agreed with the legal ruling, but they really wanted to address the practical takeaways for the street cops.
Because the totality of the circumstances isn't just about what the officer did wrong leading up to it. It's also about how incredibly dangerous the job actually is.
Correct. Kavanaugh focused heavily on the inherent danger of traffic stops. He called it an inordinate risk. Think about it. When an officer approaches a car, they are at a massive tactical disadvantage.
Yeah, they're walking up to a metal box.
Right. They have limited visibility. They don't know who is inside. They don't know what weapons might be tucked under the seat.
And the statistics back this up, right? This isn't just paranoia.
Not at all. A significant percentage of officer murders happen during these so-called routine stops. He mentioned recent tragedies like officer killings in Cameron, Wisconsin during a welfare check, and Terrell, Texas, over expired plates outside a Super 8 motel. And Kavanaugh makes a crucial point about the psychology of the fleeing suspect.
What do you mean by that?
He argues that flight itself is an indicator. If you stop someone for a broken taillight or a toll violation and they suddenly gun the engine and try to bolt, it is almost never just about the taillight. Normal people don't risk a high-speed police chase over a $50 ticket.
So if they run, they're hiding something much bigger.
That's the baseline inference. Kavanaugh listed some truly chilling examples. Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, do you know how he was caught?
Honestly, no idea.
He was stopped for a missing license plate.
Wow. Just a missing plate.
Ted Bundy, one of the most notorious serial killers in history. He was stopped for a stolen vehicle alert, and he actually fought the officer for his gun.
So Kavanaugh's saying, when an officer sees someone suddenly flee a routine stop, they almost have to assume the worst.
They have to assume there's a grave reason for the flight. It could be drugs, sure, but it could be an abducted child tied up in the trunk. It could be a terrorist plot. Or, as we've seen a lot in recent years, the driver might intend to use the car itself as a weapon to run crowds of people over.
So this creates a total nightmare scenario for the officer on the ground. You have a suspect fleeing. You suspect they might be highly dangerous. You have literally 1 second to act. What do you actually do?
This is the officer's dilemma that Kavanaugh laid out beautifully. And honestly, it's just a list of bad options. There are really only 4 things an officer can do when someone guns that engine.
Okay, let's walk through them for everyone listening. Option 1, let them go. Just step back and wave goodbye.
Sounds safe for the officer, right? No immediate violence. But the massive risk is that the driver remains a severe threat to the community. And there is a bigger societal problem here. The court calls it perverse incentives.
Meaning, if the rule is police can't stop you if you just drive fast enough, then everyone is just going to drive away from the police.
Exactly. It would make basic traffic enforcement completely impossible. You can't just track them later. It's often impossible, or way more dangerous to try and arrest them later on their own turf.
Okay, so you can't just let them go. Option to go. 2, chase them. Jump in the cruiser and pursue.
This is often the default, but it is routinely catastrophic. The stats cited in the concurrence are just heartbreaking. From 2017 to 2022, over 500 bystanders were killed in police chases.
Wait, bystanders, not the fleeing criminals.
Bystanders, people walking their dogs down the street, people driving home from work, 500 innocent people dead because of high-speed chases. So chasing is incredibly dangerous to the public at large.
That is a staggering number.
Yeah.
Okay, option 3. And I see this in movies all the time. Just shoot the tires out.
Yeah, that is pure Hollywood nonsense. In reality, shooting out a tire on a moving car is incredibly difficult. And even if you succeed by some miracle, you might cause the car to violently spin out of control.
Right into a minivan in the next lane.
Exactly. It's wildly irresponsible in most practical settings.
Which leaves option 4. A physical stop, jumping in, grabbing the keys, or using force. Which is exactly what Officer Felix did.
And that carries the immense risk we saw in this case. The officer gets hurt or killed clinging to a vehicle, or they have to use deadly force to save themselves, which incapacitates the driver, effectively turning the moving car into an unguided missile.
It sounds like there is literally no good answer.
There isn't, and that is Kavanaugh's main point. He's warning the lower courts, when you apply this new totality standard, do not do it with the 2020 vision of hindsight. You cannot sit in the peace and quiet of a judge's chambers months later and say, well, clearly option 1 was better than option 4.
Because the officer doesn't have months. They don't even have seconds to weigh the pros and cons.
Right. They have to judge the officer's decision from the perspective of someone standing on the asphalt, adrenaline pumping, knowing that flight might very well mean killer.
So, bringing it back to the actual ruling here,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court says, look at the whole picture. The concurrence says the picture is terrifying. Where does that leave Officer Felix? Is he guilty or not?
We actually don't know yet.
Really?
Yeah, the Supreme Court didn't decide if the shooting was reasonable. They just said the lower courts used the wrong rule to measure it. They sent the case back down and said, do it again, but this time, look at the whole timeline.
But wait a minute. If we're looking at the whole timeline now, doesn't that include the exact moment Felix jumped on the car?
Yes, it absolutely does.
So couldn't a lawyer argue that by jumping on the car, he created the danger himself? Like he willingly put himself in front of the bullet, so to speak, so he can't suddenly claim self-defense.
That is the million-dollar question. It's known as the created danger theory.
Did the Supreme Court rule on that part?
They explicitly punted on it. They said that issue wasn't the specific question presented in the petition. They basically said, we are just fixing the timing rule, nothing else.
That seems like a massive loose end to just leave hanging.
It is the elephant in the room. The lower courts used the moment of threat rule to completely ignore that question. They said, it doesn't matter how he got on the car, he's on the car. But now that the moment of threat rule is gone, the courts have to look at the totality.
And that totality includes his active choice to jump.
Exactly. So when this case goes back down, the courts are going to have to wrestle with that exact dilemma. Does a tactical mistake early in the timeline, like jumping onto a moving car, invalidate the right to self-defense 2 seconds later?
It really forces you to ask, can you claim self-defense if you actively helped create the emergency?
And the answer to that question will define the next generation of policing. The Supreme Court opened the door to the totality, but they left it completely up to the lower courts to decide what that totality actually means for an officer's career and their liberty.
It changes how you look at a traffic stop. Next time you see those flashing lights in your rear view, you aren't just going to think about the ticket. You'll think about the complex web of law, psychology, and pure survival instincts happening in the front seat of that cruiser.
And remember, under the new rules, reasonableness has no time limit.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Barnes v. Felix. Stay curious and drive safe out there.